The year was 2347, and Earth was dying. Captain Park stood at the window of the orbital monitoring station and looked down at the planet below. Once, Earth had been blue and green and beautiful. Now it was brown and gray, covered in storms that never stopped. The oceans were poison. The air was thick with dust. Most of the animals were gone. Most of the plants were gone too. Humanity lived underground now. 800 million people, hiding in tunnels and bunkers, fighting over the last clean water and the last scraps of food. They had done this to themselves. Wars and greed and stupidity had killed their world. Was 52 years old. He remembered when he was a child, when there were still trees outside. He remembered blue sky. His children would never see such things. The monitoring station was old and broken. Half the systems did not work. They had no weapons, no shields, nothing. 20 people lived here, watching the stars, waiting for something. They did not know what they were waiting for. Maybe they were just waiting to die like everyone else. Lieutenant was young, only 25. She sat at her console, watching the screens with tired eyes. She had been working for 16 hours. There was no one else to take her shift. Then she saw something that made her sit up straight. "Captain," she said, her voice was shaking. "Captain, you need to see this." Walked over to her console. On the screen there were dots, many dots. They were moving toward Earth. "Ships," whispered. "At least 30 ships, big ones." Felt his heart turn cold. This was it then. Aliens. Coming to finish what humanity had started. Coming to take whatever was left of their dying world. He called Doctor to the command center. Was the station's scientist, an expert in alien life. Of course, no one had ever actually found alien life before, but she had studied the possibilities her whole career. "What do we do?" asked. "Nothing," said quietly. "We have no weapons, we have no way to fight, we can only watch and wait." The ships came closer over the next 3 days. They were beautiful in a terrible way. They glowed with soft light like living things. They were shaped like seeds, like teardrops, like something from a dream. On the 4th day, they received a message. Doctor worked for hours to understand it. The language was strange, but there were patterns, pictures, mathematics. Slowly, she began to translate. "They call themselves the," she told, "and they are asking permission to approach. They say they come in peace. They say they want to help." Help laughed, but there was no humor in it. Why would anyone want to help us? Look at us. Look at what we did to our own world. "I do not know," said, "but they are asking, what should I tell them?" Thought for a long time. They had nothing to lose. If the aliens wanted to destroy them, they could do it easily. If they wanted to help, then maybe, just maybe, there was hope. "Tell them yes," he said. The first ship docked with their station the next day. When the airlock opened, held his breath. They were tall and thin, with skin that glowed softly like moonlight. They had 4 arms and large, dark eyes that seemed full of sadness. They moved slowly and gently, like they were afraid of breaking something. Their leader was old. Her glow was dimmer than the others, and she walked with difficulty, but her eyes were kind. Through his translation device, she spoke. "I am the eldest of my people. We have traveled for many centuries, searching for a home. Our own world died long ago, destroyed by a great disaster. We are the last 12,000 of our kind." Stared at her. These aliens were refugees, just like humanity would soon be. They were dying too. "Why are you here?" he asked. "Why did you come to Earth?" Looked at him with those sad, ancient eyes. "We saw your world as we passed. We saw that it was sick and dying. We saw that your people were suffering. And we remembered our own suffering when our world died and no one came to help us. We were alone in the darkness. We do not want you to be alone." She reached into her robe and pulled out a small container. Inside were tiny glowing particles, like dust made of light. "These are purification spores," she said. "They are living things. We have carried them for generations, hopping to find a world where we could use them, but we have never found a home. We give them to you now. Put them in your atmosphere. They will clean your air. They will heal your sky. In 30 years, your world will begin to recover. Could not believe what he was hearing. You are giving us this, just giving it. What do you want in return? Smiled, and her glow became a little brighter. Nothing, she said. We want nothing. We have learned in our long wandering that kindness does not need a price. We help you because we can, because we remember what it was to have no one offer us aid. We will not let another species feel that abandonment. Felt tears in his eyes. He had not cried in many years. He had forgotten how. Where will you go? Asked. We will continue our journey, said. Somewhere in this universe there is a home for us. We will find it or we will die searching. But either way, we will know that we did some good along the way. They stayed for 3 days. They taught humanity how to use the spores. They shared meals and stories. And then quietly they left. Watched their ships disappear into the stars. He made a promise to himself that day. A promise he would keep for the rest of his life and pass on to everyone who came after. Someday, somehow, humanity would find thee again, and they would repay this kindness, no matter how long it took, no matter what it cost. They would never forget. 50 years had passed since they came and went. Earth was healing. The spores had done their work just as had promised. The storms were calmer now. The sky was turning blue again in some places. Plants were growing on the surface. Animals were coming back, slowly, carefully. Humanity had changed too. The wars had stopped. The fighting over resources had ended. When people saw that their world could be saved, they found reasons to work together. They built a new government called the Terran Cooperative. Every nation, every city, every person worked for the same goal now. And that goal was simple: repay the debt. Admiral Minu was 87 years old. He had been a young officer on that monitoring station 50 years ago, serving under Captain Park. He had seen them with his own eyes. He had watched them leave. He never forgot. Now he was the head of the Terran Deep Space Fleet. It was a grand title for a small fleet. They had only 12 ships and none of them could travel very fast, but they were trying. Every day they were trying. Minu sat in his office in the fleet headquarters in what used to be Seoul. The city had been rebuilt on the surface, one of the first places where the air was clean enough to breathe. Outside his window, he could see children playing in a park, children playing outside. It still made him want to cry every time he saw it. His assistant knocked on the door. Ambassador Song is here to see you, Admiral. Send her in. Ambassador Song was 40 years old with sharp eyes and a kind smile. She led the diplomatic corps, a whole department of people who did nothing but prepare for the day humanity found thee again. They studied the language from the old recordings. They learned customs and history. They were ready. We have news, said, sitting down across from Minu. The probe we sent to Sector 7 found something. Old engine signatures. They match the ships. Minu leaned forward. How old? Maybe 30 years. The trail is cold, but it is there. We know which direction they went. Minu closed his eyes. 30 years. They could be anywhere by now. They could be dead. Their slow ships wandering through the darkness, hunted and alone. We need faster ships, he said. We need to find them before it is too late. I know, said. That is why I brought engineer with me. She gestured to the door, and a young man walked in. Was only 32, but he was already the engineer in the cooperative. He had wild hair and tired eyes, and a smile that made him look like a child who had found a wonderful secret. Admiral said, bowing quickly, I have something to show you. He pulled out a small device and projected an image into the air. It showed complex diagrams and equations that Minu did not understand. For 50 years we have been studying the spores they gave us, explained. They are not just biological, they have a quantum structure, a pattern we have never seen before. I believe the understood physics that we never even imagined." "What does this mean?" Minyu asked. Smile grew wider. "It means I can build a faster-than-light drive. I can make a ship that travels faster than anything we have ever built, fast enough to cross the galaxy, fast enough to find the—" Minyu stared at him. "Are you certain?" "I have tested it. Small scale, but it works. With enough resources, I can build a real ship in 5 years." Minyu stood up. His old bones hurt, but he did not care. He walked to the window and looked out at the blue sky, the green trees, the children playing. "They gave us our world back," he said quietly. "They gave us our future, and we have spent 50 years getting ready to thank them. Now we can finally do it." He turned back to An. "You will have everything you need, every resource the cooperative can give. Build the ship." The next 5 years were the busiest in human history. Factories worked day and night. Scientists solved problems they had struggled with for decades. Everyone on Earth knew what they were building and why. Everyone wanted to help. They called the ship the TSS Gratitude. It was beautiful, sleek and silver, built to travel among the stars. It carried a crew of 200, the best humanity had to offer. Scientists and doctors and engineers and diplomats, people who had trained their whole lives for this moment. Ambassador Song was on board. So was a young officer named who would be the captain. She was only 35, but she had been chosen for her skill and her heart. She understood why this mission mattered. On the day of the launch, Admiral Minyu came to see them off. He was 92 now, too old to make the journey himself, but he needed to be there. "Find them," he told. Tell them we remember. Tell them we are coming to help just as they helped us." Saluted him. "We will not fail, Admiral, I promise." The Gratitude launched into the sky, climbing higher and higher until it disappeared into the stars. Minyu watched it go, tears running down his old face. He would not live to see them find he knew that, but it did not matter. The mission would continue. Humanity would never stop searching. Because some debts were too important to forget. Some kindness was too great to leave unpaid. Somewhere out there in the vast darkness between stars they were still wandering, still hopping, still alone. Not for much longer. Humanity was coming. The TSS Gratitude had been searching for 3 years. Captain stood on the bridge, looking at the stars through the main window. They were so far from Earth now, so far from home. The faster-than-light drive worked perfectly, carrying them across distances that would have taken centuries with old technology. But the galaxy was big and the trail was cold. They had found signs, old campsites on dead moons, abandoned equipment floating in empty space, messages carved into rocks, written in the flowing script that Ambassador had spent her life learning. The messages were sad. They spoke of hope fading, of numbers shrinking, of enemies in the dark. Dr. Han was the ship's medical officer. She was quiet and gentle, with steady hands and a warm smile. She had joined this mission because her grandmother had been one of the people saved by the spores. Her grandmother had told her stories about the glowing aliens who came from the stars and asked for nothing. Had grown up wanting to meet them, to thank them. Sergeant was the security chief. He was big and strong with a serious face that rarely smiled, but inside he was soft. His mother had been dying when the spores began their work. The clean air had saved her life. He owed the everything. On the morning of the 1095th day of their journey, Lieutenant found something. "Captain," she called from her station, her voice was shaking. "I have them, I have the—" Rushed to her side. On the screen she could see ship signatures, the same beautiful teardrop shapes from the old records. They were orbiting a dying red star, far from any planets, hiding in the darkness. "How many ships?" asked. Checked her readings, her face went pale. "3, Captain, only 3. Felt her heart grow heavy. The records said there had been 12 great when they visited Earth. 12 ships carrying 12,000 people. Now there were 3. Set a course, ordered, maximum speed, and open a communication channel. Let them know we are coming. The Gratitude raced toward the ships. As they got closer, could see the damage. The ships were burned and broken. Holes had been torn in their hulls. They were barely holding together. The communication channel crackled to life. A voice spoke, weak and afraid in the language. Ambassador translated. They are asking who we are. They are asking if we are here to hurt them. Tell them no, said. Tell them we are humans from Earth. Tell them we have come to help. There was a long silence. Then the voice spoke again, and this time it was shaking. His eyes filled with tears as she translated. They say, they remember Earth. They remember the dying world. They did not think anyone would come. The Gratitude docked with the largest ship. The airlock opened and stepped through with and beside her. The inside of the ship was dark and cold. The lights were dim, the glow fading, moved slowly through the corridors, their skin barely shining. They looked sick. They looked tired. They looked like people who had given up hope. A young woman came to meet them. She was thin and weak, but she held herself with dignity. Her glow was soft blue, flickering like a candle in the wind. I am Keeper Solace, she said through the translator. I lead what remains of my people. My mother was, she told me about Earth, about the world she helped long ago. I did not believe I would ever see a human. Bowed deeply. Keeper Solace, I am captain of the Terran Cooperative. 50 years ago, your mother and your people saved our world. You asked for nothing. You gave us everything. We have spent 50 years looking for you so that we could repay your kindness. Solace stared at her. Her dark eyes grew wet with glowing tears. You came back, she whispered. In all our centuries of wandering, no one has ever come back for us. No one has ever cared. We care, said. Please tell us what happened. Tell us how we can help. Solace led them to a small room and told them the story. After leaving Earth, they had continued their journey through the galaxy. They found no home. Every world they approached was claimed by others or too dangerous to settle. And then they met the Dominion. They were hunters. They were cruel and strong, and they saw the peaceful as easy prey. They attacked again and again, stealing technology, taking people as slaves. They had no weapons, no way to fight back. They could only run. For 40 years they had been running. 9 of their great ships had been destroyed. 10,000 of their people had been killed or taken. Now only 3 ships remained. Only 2,000 were left. We are dying, Solace said softly. Not today, not tomorrow, but soon. They will find us again. They always do, and we cannot run forever. Reached out and took Solace's hand. The skin was cool and smooth, and her glow brightened slightly at the touch. You will not run anymore, said firmly. You helped us when we had nothing. You saved our world, our people, our future. Now we are here to do the same for you. But they are powerful, Solace said. They have many ships, many weapons. What can you do against them? Smiled. It was not a gentle smile. It was the smile of a species that had learned to survive against all odds, a species that had rebuilt itself from ashes, a species that never forgot its debts. You helped us once, she said, and humanity repays its debts with interest. Stay here, rest, heal. We are calling for help. She turned to send a message to Earth. Tell them we found tell them what they have done. Tell them to send everything. Nodded and ran to the communication console. Stepped forward, his hand resting on his weapon. Captain, if the come before help arrives. Looked at him with fierce eyes. Then we fight. We fight until the last human is dead. We did not come all this way to let our friends die alone. In the dim light of the broken ship, surrounded by the last survivors of a gentle people, Captain made a silent promise. They had saved humanity. Now humanity would save them. No matter what it took. When Earth received the message from Captain, everything changed. The story of the spread across the planet in hours. People heard about the gentle aliens who had saved their world 50 years ago. They heard about the attacks. They heard about the 2,000 survivors hiding in the darkness, waiting to die. And humanity answered with one voice. Fleet Admiral Menu had died 3 years earlier, but his daughter, Admiral, now led the Terran fleet. She was 60 years old, with her father's fierce eyes and her mother's steady hands. When she read's message, she stood up from her desk and walked to the window. Outside, the world her father had fought to save was alive and green. Children played in parks. Birds sang in trees. The sky was blue and clear. All because of the "Prepare every ship we have," she ordered. "Every weapon, every soldier. We are going to war." Within 6 months, the largest fleet in human history gathered at the edge of Earth's solar system. 200 warships, built with 50 years of advanced technology. Each one carried weapons that could destroy cities, shields that could stop asteroids, engines that could cross the galaxy in weeks. The fleet was called the Fist of Gratitude, but that was only part of humanity's response. Dr. No was a terraforming scientist. She had spent her career learning how to make dead worlds come alive. When she heard about she went to the Cooperative Council with a bold plan. "They have been searching for a home for centuries," she said. "They saved us because they remembered being homeless and alone. We can give them what they have always wanted. We can build them a world." The council agreed. They found a planet in a stable system with a yellow sun like Earth's. It was cold and empty, covered in ice and rock, perfect for terraforming. They called it New. For the next 5 years, 40% of Earth's entire industrial output went to this one project. Thousands of ships carried equipment and supplies across the stars. Millions of workers volunteered to help. They melted the ice. They created oceans. They filled the air with oxygen. They planted forests and fields and gardens. And they did something else, something special. Human historians and artists worked with the survivors to recover everything that had been lost. Old records from the destroyed ships were searched and studied. Songs that no one had sung for centuries were learned again. Stories that grandparents had told were written down. Art that had been destroyed was recreated. They had thought their culture was dying with them. Humanity brought it back to life. Commodore Park led the military response. She was 38 years old, the granddaughter of Captain Park who had first met She had grown up hearing stories about the glowing aliens. She had trained her whole life for this moment. The Fist of Gratitude arrived at the location 8 months after leaving Earth. Captain and the crew of the Gratitude had protected the ships alone during that time, hiding them, moving them, staying one step ahead of the patrols. Whence fleet appeared out of faster-than-light space, wept with relief. "Well done, Captain," said over the communication channel. "We will take it from here." She positioned her ships in a wall between thee and space. 200 warships, bristling with weapons, shields glowing bright. A message to anyone who might be watching. The came 3 days later. 18 warships dropped out of warp, expecting to find their usual prey. Instead, they found fleet waiting for them. "Attention vessels," broadcast on all frequencies. "This is Commodore Park of the Terran Cooperative. They are under our protection. If you attack them, you attack us. Turn around now or face the consequences." The commander laughed. They had conquered dozens of species. They had never lost a battle. These strange new aliens were nothing to fear. They attacked. 11 minutes later, 18 ships were destroyed or disabled. Not a single human ship was lost. Broadcast again, this time to "We are humanity that helped us when we were dying. We do not forget. We do not forgive those who hurt our friends. Stay away from This is your only warning." They did not attack again. But's victory was only the beginning. Over the next 10 years, the true work happened. New was completed. The planet was beautiful, covered in forests and oceans, with cities designed for this needs. The buildings glowed softly, matching the sun's light. The water was perfect for their biology. The food that grew there was exactly what they needed. Keeper Solace walked through the first city with Admiral beside her. Was old now, 70 years old, her hair gray and her steps slow, but her eyes were bright. "I do not understand," Solace said softly. "You have given us everything, a home, safety, our culture restored. Why, we gave you spores, you have given us a world." Smiled and put her hand on Solace's arm. "Your mother asked for nothing when she helped us, but we are not your mother. We are humans, and when someone saves us, we do not give them equal return. We give them more, much more." "But why?" Looked up at the soft glow of the city lights. "Because that is how kindness should work. Your people showed us that compassion matters even when you are dying. We learned from you. We became better because of you. This world is not payment for your gift. It is a continuation of it. You helped us. Now we help you, and together we will help others." Solace's glow brightened, warmer and stronger than it had been in years. "My mother told me about humans. She said you were interesting. She said you might surprise us someday." "What do you think now?" asked. Solace looked at the world around her. The world that humans had built with their own hands, for strangers they had never known. A world born from a debt freely repaid. "I think," Solace said slowly, "that my mother did not imagine anything this wonderful. I think she would be very happy to be wrong." The first children born on Nu arrived 2 years later. For the first time in centuries, the population began to grow. For the first time in centuries, they had hope. And across the galaxy, other species began to watch. They saw what humanity had done. They saw a species that remembered kindness, a species that repaid its debts, a species that protected those who could not protect themselves. They began to wonder what it would be like to have humanity as a friend. The universe was about to find out. 100 years had passed since the first came to Earth. The galaxy was different now. Everything had changed. Chancellor Moon stood at the great window of the Alliance headquarters on Nu. She was 55 years old, the elected leader of the Terran Alliance. Below her, the capital city glowed with soft light, a mix of human architecture and design. Humans and walked together through the streets, friends and neighbors, two species that had become one family. The population had grown to 500,000. Children were born every day. Schools taught both human and history. Families shared meals together. Some humans had even learned to understand the color changes in skin, the silent language of light that the gentle aliens used among themselves. But the Alliance was more than just humans, and now. Ambassador Keeper Radiant stood beside. She was the daughter of Keeper Solace, born on Nu, the first generation to know a home. Her glow was strong and bright, a deep blue that showed her calm and confidence. "The delegates are arriving," Radiance said. 12 species today, all of them want to join." Nodded, this was what they had built. The Alliance of Open Hands, a coalition that promised help to any species in need. No conditions, no payment, just kindness freely given, the same way that had helped humanity a century ago. Word had spread across the galaxy. The story of how humanity had repaid that had become famous. Other species, struggling and alone, had come to see if it was true. When they found that it was, they asked to join. The Alliance did not build an empire. They did not conquer, they helped. When a planet was dying, they sent. When a species was attacked, they sent ships. When cultures were fading, they sent historians and artists to preserve them. Humanity had learned something from that day 100 years ago. They had learned that kindness was not weakness, that helping others did not make you poor, that the universe was dark and cold, but it did not have to stay that way. Captain Shin commanded the flagship of the Alliance fleet, a great ship called the Unity. He was 40 years old, born on Earth but raised traveling between worlds. His first officer was a named Soft Dawn, and his crew came from 8 different species. Today, they had a special mission. A message had come from the remnant. The Dominion had collapsed 20 years ago, broken by internal rebellion and economic failure. Their predatory way of life had finally caught up with them. Now the survivors lived in scattered groups, feared and hated by everyone they had once hurt. But some of them wanted to change. A faction of young had sent a request to the Alliance. They did not want to live like their parents. They did not want to hunt and steal and destroy. They wanted a different way. They wanted to learn. Many in the Alliance were angry. They had caused so much suffering. They had nearly destroyed the why should anyone help them? Chancellor had answered that question in her speech to the Alliance Council. They helped humanity when we were dying, she said. They did not ask if we deserved it. They did not check if we were good people. They helped because they could, because kindness should not have conditions. If we turn away the now, we become the very thing we fight against. We become people who only help those we like, those who are easy to love. That is not who we are. That is not who they taught us to be. The council voted to accept the refugees. Not everyone agreed, but enough did. Now Captain guided the Unity toward the meeting point. A small ship waited there, alone and undefended. Its weapons were turned off. Its shields were down, a gesture of trust from a species that had never trusted anyone. The airlock opened and a walked through. He was young with dark scales and sharp teeth built for hunting and fighting, but his eyes were uncertain, afraid, hopeful. I am called Broken Claw, he said through the translator. I speak for those who want peace. We know what our people did. We know we cannot undo it, but we want to try. We want to be different. Soft Dawn stepped forward. She was, and her people had suffered more from than anyone. Her glow flickered with complex emotions, colors shifting like thoughts across her skin. My grandmother was taken by she said quietly. I never knew her. She died in your slave camps. Broken Claw lowered his head. I am sorry, I cannot bring her back. I cannot fix what was done. No, Soft Dawn agreed. You cannot. She paused, and her glow slowly shifted to a soft, warm green. But you can do better. That is all any of us can do. Be better than those who came before. She reached out her four-fingered hand. Broken Claw stared at it for a long moment. Then slowly he took it. Watched from the side, his heart full. This was what humanity had learned. This was what they had become. Not conquerors, not judges, just people who remembered what it felt like to be saved and who wanted to give that feeling to others. The ceremony on that night was beautiful. Representatives from all 12 member species gathered in the Great Hall. Lights of every color filled the air. Music played, a mixture of human songs and melodies and sounds from a dozen other worlds. Chancellor stood at the podium to speak. 100 years ago, humanity was dying. Our world was poisoned. Our people were broken. We had nothing to offer and nothing to hope for. And then they came. They did not know us. They had no reason to help us. But they did. They gave us their gift and asked for nothing. She paused, looking out at the crowd. Humans, and stood side by side with species from across the galaxy. That single act of kindness changed everything. It taught us that compassion is not foolish, that generosity is not weakness, that when someone helps you in your darkest hour, you do not simply repay them. You become the kind of being who helps others in their darkest hour too. Her voice grew stronger. They transformed us, and now together we have transformed the galaxy, not through war, not through conquest, through kindness, through remembering, through never forgetting that we were once alone and afraid and someone stopped to help. She raised her glass. To the who showed us the way, to humanity who learned the lesson, and to everyone who has joined us since. The universe is dark, but together we are the light. The crowd cheered. Glasses were raised. On the bridge of the Unity, orbiting high above, Captain and Soft Dawn watched the celebration through the... Do you think it will last? Asked. All of this, the alliance, the peace. Soft Dawn's glow shifted thoughtfully. Nothing lasts forever, but that does not mean it is not worth building. My people wandered for centuries looking for a home. We thought we would die alone in the dark. Instead, we found you. We found this." She turned to face him, her dark eyes warm. "Whatever comes next, we face it together. That is enough. That has always been enough." Smiled. Outside the window, the stars stretched endlessly into the void. So many worlds out there. So many species waiting to be found. So many chances to help. Because someone chose to be kind. And someone else chose to remember. And together, they transformed everything.